Hello everyone, good morning. A very warm welcome to all of you in the online international conference on online learning, best practices and possibilities. It is indeed honor and fortune for all of us to have the eminent speakers with us in the series of keynote and plenary talks. The speakers are from premier institutions of India as well as abroad. Today, in this session, I would like to welcome Professor Dr. Paresh Joshi. He is serving as a professor with the Department of English, Veer Narmad South Gujarat University. He is known for his communication skills. Professor Joshi is a versatile teacher, a teacher by heart who has molded the lives of thousands of students in his professional academic career. He has been serving academia and research fraternity since last 2 decades or more. He has benefited the fraternity with his insightful, meaningful series of talks, books, and research papers. It is a moment of great pleasure and proud for Vedant Foundation as well as Vedant Educational Services to have Professor Joshi as the advisor. On behalf of the organizing committee of this conference, I would like to welcome Professor Joshi to share his meaningful, insightful talk on online learning in his own style. Thank you.
Well, this really is an opportunity to interact with these scholars who have participated in this particular conference. The theme of this conference, as all of us know, is online learning, best practices and possibilities. And I take this opportunity to congratulate Vedant Foundation and Harivandana College, who have come together to organize this wonderful conference. I express my sense of gratitude to Vedant. I have been associated with Vedant for quite some time now. And Harivandana College is also quite known to me. I have worked with the college in various capacities. I have taken sessions there. So, in the first place, I congratulate both the organizers for putting together such a beautiful, meaningful, I would say, conference. I have chosen to speak on networking tools and online teaching, multiple possibilities. As a matter of fact, we are now living in an unprecedented time. Needless to say that we're going through a phase which is, bringing new surprises every day. Needless also to say that we all pushed into these confinements. We were about to go offline, people were happy, the schools were to start, colleges were to start, the announcements were made, we were all set to have the offline education, and everyone was celebrating. I was excited because then, we all know that, well, online teaching is a way out. It has multiple possibilities, but then it confines compared to the offline, a real life classroom. Each one of us will have to make some adjustments to ensure that the teaching and learning continues to flourish in spite of the fact that we are pushed way inside our houses. We are in a position. We are not in a position to go out and have teaching and learning happening. Online teaching has become a norm. I know I need not say that it is a new normal. It has already been an obsolete fact that uh, online teaching is new normal. I mean, I remember a session I had taken about a few months back. Online teaching, the new normal. It's no longer a new normal. It has become a norm. And every time we think about teaching, it's online now. As I said, those moments of happiness, unfortunately, vanished when we realized that the numbers of cases are growing exponentially, and then we'll have to continue to be online, God knows how long. Let's pray that we get back to our uh, offline classes soon. Till then, we continue to be what we are. We continue to remain productive online. The theme is very relevant because, I don't know, this year again, we will remain online. God forbid we could, continue online for a long time. Uh, Online learning, best practices, and possibilities becomes a very relevant area of discussion in academia, because then we'll have to continue to innovate, we'll have to continue to bring new possibilities. We need to discuss the existing practices, and then when we discuss possibilities, probably a few new methods would come to light from the discussions, and I'm sure that a lot of new ideas would benefit all those who have participated in this particular conference. Uh, I have chosen to be on the possibility side more than the practices. And I'm sure my colleagues are going to, there are eminent speakers, or a whole galaxy of them. And I'm sure many of them would be focusing on the practices. As I said, I have chosen to be with possibilities. And I'm going to discuss the possibilities within the social networking or networking domain, how networking domain, which is otherwise stigmatized as something that wastes time, we as teachers have been pushing our students to keep away from Instagram, keep away from WhatsApp, because we perceive them as as domains which consume a very productive time of our learners. It would be wonderful if we can think of possibilities of integrating these networking tools into our teaching and learning, and it can really bring uh, multiple possibilities, as I said. Uh, Look at this picture. I think this is my visual response to the theme of the conference: online teaching. I mean, when we say teaching, we already, I mean, we are actually meaning learning, because it's the other side of the coin. So this two visuals, two pictures answer the practices and possibilities matrix. I mean, here we have two wonderful examples of teachers who could not be defeated, who have risen above every existing limitation. Because every time we talk of online teaching, we have a whole list of problems, bandwidth problem, we have uh, resources, infrastructure. These come out as big challenges for all the stakeholders in education. I mean, teachers face bandwidth problems, students face bandwidth problems. But then look at this teacher in West Bengal who has an amazing solution to this bandwidth problem. He goes up the neem tree, puts a nest there, a platform, and all to ensure that he gets a proper bandwidth to teach his students. Many of you would have seen this picture, but I find it very uh, motivating to me, when I look at this picture. And here you have a lady. We talk of resources, we talk of lack of infrastructure, but if you have a will, you have, if you carefully see this picture, you have a shirt hanger hung upside down in the rags, and then you have that chair holding the cell phone to ensure that it doesn't shake. And this is the spirit. I think uh, these pictures would motivate all of us uh, to think of practices and possibilities rising above the kind of problems that all of us are faced. And I'm very familiar with all of these problems. We had a little bit of a glitch right before we began recording this particular session. So they're going to remain, but I think we'll have to rise above that. This was an interesting editorial in Times of India, losing our minds on social media. I think I began saying that we've all been perceiving social media as something that consumes very valuable time of our youth, and we have, been continuously rebuking our youth that use social media less. My son is in 12th, and I keep telling him no Instagram, no Facebook, no WhatsApp. But much of what I'm going to discuss now is trying to leverage a tremendous potential of networking tools in teaching and learning. Now, this editorial said, look at this vertical and horizontal matrix. Vertical matrix is intelligence, and horizontal matrix is confidence. And if you carefully see the social media behavior, the more intelligent you are, the less confident you are to put up a post on social media. And I think uh, we've seen the notoriety of social media. And therefore, when you are low on intelligence, your confidence to put unedited content on social media goes very high. And I think it's an interesting read if some of you feel like reading this editorial. I have put this visual to say that social media is stigmatized, networking tools are stigmatized, and when we're talking about leveraging them in education, in fact, we as educators have always kept this mobile phones, social media outside our classroom. Uh, let's look at some of these possibilities which would help us. These are some of the statistics that would help us perceive the world of internet, the world of social media of 7.7 billion population. We have about 5.16 billion unique mobile phone users. You have about 4.57 billion internet users, and about 3.81 billion, 49% of the population, they're the active social media users. And they are my target when I'm talking about, networking tools and online education. Uh, Quickly see this statistics. This says that an average person spends about 6 hours and 39 minutes on internet. This obviously also means the official business work. This is not just social networking, but the total amount of time an average person spends. Uh, More on the urban side, about 3 hours and 24 minutes, uh, you know, on social media, cell phones, to be precise. And this is a very recent data, as fresh as April 2020. This is an interesting platform for getting uh, the updated reports on the internet and its use, or a computer and its use worldwide. Look at these interesting statistics that tells you about leading countries based on the Facebook audience size as per April 2020. And India is leading all the way. 280 billion users are from Facebook. So, needless to say that we probably are the largest uh, netizens, a new uh, term that has been used for people on the, the World Wide Web. Uh, so, this speaks of the universality of the social networking tools. So these are very, very famous tools: Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter. Needless to even say, they are very popular because each one of us have them in our cell phones. And a lot of time is given to these tools. Edmodo and Google Classroom are edu networking tools, though I have kept them because they're still networking tools. So what? They're educational networking tools. Uh, Application of networking tools in education. A Web 2.0, changed the entire landscape of uh, networking online. This was a revolution, which is, I mean, we are now talking about Web uh, 3.0. Web 01 was more a one-way sort of information flow. Websites would host information, you access it. Web 2.0, for example, allows you that interactivity, and social media's birth is seen in Web 2.0 and Orkut, and then it's endless. I mean, every day we have few new features added, few new platforms emerging, and we continue to update ourselves. Every new update on a WhatsApp or on Instagram, we, for example, have now the merger of Messenger and Instagram and WhatsApp, and we keep ourselves updated because then social networking is our need. It was used in educational networking. You would see a lot of web content where uh, institutions are using these platforms for networking. Uh, in fact, you see a lot of advertisement these days, for example, because we are uh, on an online world. Education is online today. Byju's and who was the main sponsor of IPL, for example, an academy. So these social networking tools within the domain of education is also used for marketing. The second very important function that networking tools play in an educational setup is educational management and administration. Each school will have its WhatsApp group. The notices are put there, timetables are put there. Teachers will have their advisory groups, and they would be uh, networking or communicating messages with the students, assignments, every other detail is given in those WhatsApp groups. Edmodo, Google Class is used. But when we say teaching and learning, we have not seen so much of application of networking tools in teaching and learning. And that is an area which I think I would love to explore in another 20 minutes that I have. Uh, let's move forward. Benefits of networking tools. I think they are known to all of us, but let's revisit them because then we will be in a position to connect to how uh, these social networking platforms are so universal and how can they then be integrated in our day-to-day classroom. So first, they're universal. I mean, right from the richest man to the poorest man in the street, they know Facebook, they know WhatsApp, they know Instagram, and each one of them educate themselves, within the streets, within the tea uh, parties or tea corners as to how to upload this photograph, and then a friend would teach the other person who has started using Facebook that this is how you upload your photograph on an FB. So they're universal. Everyone knows it. They're familiar. I mean, you don't need to have an official training program to train people on how to use uh, Facebook or how to use WhatsApp. Schools and educators have been organizing various trainings on, for example, when we started teaching online a few months back, there were dedicated trainings on using Google Meet and other platforms. But you won't see, a training program for any one of the networking tools. People know it. It is convenient because everyone has it. For example, every time you organize a lecture, you will have to ask the expert, what platform are you using? Are you using WebEx, Zoom, Google Meet? Many of us may not be familiar with any one of these platforms, but it is convenient because everyone has it. It allows audiovisual interactivity. It is collaborative in nature. WhatsApp groups, for example, each one of us have a school WhatsApp groups and educators WhatsApp groups, even in FB and everywhere. It it allows audiovisual interactivity. Even WhatsApp and others give you, a video call option. There's a video call option. See how these platforms are evolving. WhatsApp allowed 4, and then now it's 8. I don't know how much more it's going to go. Anytime, anywhere. Very interestingly, the popularity of social networking also is sometimes dedicated to the availability of the verbal text and the non-verbal together, those emoticons, which allow you to have the entire range of smiles. You have various laughters, various angers. So social networking has become so popular because it allows you to even express non-verbal along with the verbal. That provision was no longer available. Uh, Before Web.0 came in, collaborative platforms were established. And these emoticons have revolutionized the way we communicate, the way we chat electronically. And that probably has contributed to the popularity of networking tools. They're used for networking. No additional cost. When I say no cost, it has cost, but the cost that everyone is bearing is the cost. One is not additionally bearing any cost for using social networking. If you're informed, there are a lot of hidden costs, and it would require a separate lecture on what is the cost of being the part of social networking brigade, because then you're letting go your very valuable personal data to the data mining agencies who keep selling your data and keep earning. That's another matter, but it doesn't have a tangible, visible cost, additional cost. No training required. And very importantly, they are informal in nature. So everyone is using it at any time. It doesn't require a specific, uh, formal structure to use social networking tools. Uh, Rather than just talking ideas, I thought I would get hold of some good research papers as concrete examples to prove my point, because I was apprehensive of the fact that some of you may also disagree when I say that networking tools can also be integrated in teaching and learning. So this is augmenting learner autonomy through blogs. Both of them are honorable friends. Professor Atanu Bhattacharya, uh, a friend, philosopher, and a guide. Kiran Chauhan is a friend. Now, this is a very, you know, vigorously cited paper. I wish people read this paper. Now, this was an effort to, motivate learners to writing blogs. So a target group was identified. They were asked to make their own blogs. The idea was to teach them language here. And as you could see here, the blogs developed two major ways as personal online diary. Now, just imagine, blogging acts as a personal diary, and when a learner sits to write, he is actually using language. He is motivated to use language. As teachers of, I am a language teacher, and many of my examples would be from the language side. But if you're from other fields, you can think of innovations in your field. I'm just giving you example as to how, uh, teachers of English, for example, have used networking tools for motivating learners to learn language. And many of them, for example, had to educate themselves as to how to open one's own on blog. Now, when they were learning this, they had to read through a lot of instruction, which was in English, which was reading. They had to write about their personal experiences on the blog, which is again an expression. So students were motivated to use these online platform, and that enhanced their language learning. There is another very, very interesting case here presented in a paper: online teacher-students interaction using WhatsApp in a law course. Now, as we'll go into the details, uh, a sample size of 166 students uh, were chosen. Now, this is an amazing example of a role play in a WhatsApp group. Now, all of us have seen the benefits of role play in teaching multiple things along with communication. I have used role plays to the best of its effect in teaching communication, and some of you could have been the part of my class when I was uh, training people on communication. But imagine a role play, a full blown, serious role play conducted in a WhatsApp group. Now, this is the real uh, uh, integration of networking tools in teaching and learning. So, as I said, 166 candidate students were identified. It was an online role play, and students assumed the role of plaintiff, defendants, judges. WhatsApp groups were formed, monitored by teachers. So we'll have a group of students, not 166, all of them, but smaller groups. Now, one would become a judge, the other would become a plaintiff, defendant. And the case would go on. You will have to type your arguments. Maybe, if I would innovate, I would allow even the recording to be done. Now, now you are motivating students to do something new, on social networking. And as I said, the benefits are already listed: universality, familiarity, uh, anytime, anywhere, the informal nature of, say, social media. Now, this can really motivate learners to do things. As teachers, our primary, uh, you know, concern when we talk of teaching and learning is the lethargy of learners. Now, when we say learners are not participating, uh, I think a little blame comes to us because probably we are not innovating enough. A role play offline in a classroom is something that a student has done and seen probably from second, third grade. Now, this would be a new example. Use WhatsApp group for doing a role play. These were some of the findings of this research paper. This is a full-blown research paper. You can search these papers. They are available. They're easily available. Read through them. Mobile devices in the classroom seem to be an interesting intervention to facilitate the teaching and learning process even outside the classroom. Look at this. Moment you have a role play happening on WhatsApp, you are breaking the boundaries, the class. You're breaking the boundaries, the timetable, because then if you are taking a session, an hour is all that you have. And then right when the role play becomes interesting, the bell goes, you'll have to go out. The students are on their own attending to something else. So here, this is a 24/7 running role play. And I, as a plaintiff, have a lot of time to think, phrase, by argument and answer. A lot of people don't participate in role plays because they're not expressive enough, they're not confident enough, and they fear the instantaneous nature of communication. They feel that they may not be able to argue well. Yeah, they have all the time in the world to frame their argument, and that makes it more participative. Facilitated closing of distance between the teacher and the students. The students demonstrated empowerment of the roles, they were more participative, and very importantly, this breaks the myth of inconvenience of electronic devices in the students' learning process. We have seen that electronic devices are a big distraction. And therefore, every time we walk into the class, I'm talking about the times when we used to go to real class, we would ask them to probably switch off mobile phones, put the mobile phones in their bags and all that. Now, this is mobile phones making them learn. Not just mobile phones, but social networking, motivating them to do things. Uh, it is a big paradigm shift if we can make this happen in our classroom. This can become a wonderful example of a blended learning when we go to an offline class, right? Because then this can become an extension to the class. When I said we are going to be teaching online for a long time, I also want to say that we're going to be offline soon, because this cannot go on forever. This COVID is not immortal. We will find ways. Vaccines are on way. They are the trial 3. And very soon we probably go to the offline classroom. When you're thinking of an offline classroom, uh, social networking is relevant even in an offline classroom. Now, that makes it all the more relevant to teaching and learning. It's not just something limited. Uh, it doesn't have a limited utility to online teaching, but it also has uh, a lot of application in an offline classroom, and it can become a wonderful example of blended learning. Effectivity of e-learning through WhatsApp uh, as a teaching and learning tool. I have chosen, I mean, you can talk of Facebook, Instagram, but because WhatsApp is more informal and more celebrated a form of interaction, at least, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I perceive. And therefore, I have chosen a lot of these wonderful examples. Uh, Here, two groups of students were taught the same topics, uh, different target language activities through WhatsApp and via didactic lecture. So one group was taught through WhatsApp group, the others were taught in the class. The results are right in front of you. WhatsApp group as a learning tool, scores in a test taken at the end of it. I mean, I don't really have time. I would have discussed facts more, uh, uh, you know, in a detailed way. But then, I think these titles would lead you to the relevant papers and read through them. The score here is 5.5 to 20, whereas those who studied in regular classes scored 3 to 17.5. There's a marginal difference, but then there still is a difference. So students probably found online learning more uh, interesting, more participative than offline. What are the conclusions? Constant availability of the facilitator and learning anytime, anywhere has made WhatsApp a new and a convenient tool. There were disadvantages, obviously. A few disadvantages like messages flooding, and then uh, eve teasing becomes the reality, bullying becomes a reality. But as teachers, if you can motivate your learners to remain on the learning mode, these are the disadvantages which we can definitely deal with. They would be there. I mean, every time we form a WhatsApp group, we are slapped with those motivational messages and good mornings. But then, if we have a motivated group which is more focused on learning, these are disadvantages which you can easily deal with. Using WhatsApp to extend learning in a blended learning classroom environment. I just talked about the blended learning utility of integration of social networking tools. A group of students were given instruction in the classroom. The group was asked to form WhatsApp group for discussing related issues, content difficulties in assignments, uh, exams, etc. The students were asked to write their reflections, usefulness of the material. Uh, Now, this is, as I said, an amazing example of blended learning where a WhatsApp group was an extension given to the class where learners within the group can ask their queries, can ask questions, can discuss issues, can talk about content and its relevance. No, this again is giving voice to those uh, meek, mute faces in the classroom, because this must have been experience of you as educators, that you will have some very energetic, enthusiastic participants every time you think of interaction, think of an activity. But there would be so those people who are sitting in the corner of their back benches and they never participate. And it's one of the challenges that how to bring them on a participating mode. This probably is an answer, because then on a WhatsApp, that meek, not so confident student would also come out, because he has time to sit and type, think of his responses. The conclusion of this particular blended class example was students appreciated the WhatsApp platform in a way that it provides them with the opportunity to actually use language in an authentic content. A total of 574 messages were contributed by 6 students and a lecturer. All the students agreed to have benefited. Now, look at the number of messages. And if your group is more motivated, this could mean 5,000 messages. It depends on how you mold them to use this networking tools in a more effective way. Uh, Very interestingly, this is for language teachers. Uh, Now, if you can see text, photo, video, audio, and emoticons. Now, these are the options that you have on most of the social networking tools when you're interacting. Uh, some of these uh, exercises, though they seem very simple, but can bring utmost benefits into a language class at any age. And my concern at the moment is teaching of English as a second language. Look at this. This is text exercise where gap filling. So one student would send a sentence with a gap, the other fills it. Incorrect sentences can be corrected. I'm becoming sensitive to time. Odd one out. Now, this is happening. I mean, you're not doing it on a board in the classroom. There could be lesser participation in that particular mode. But if it is WhatsApp, I think there would be more participation. Learners would enjoy doing it because they are uh, coming across something absolutely new. It's like, for example, for the first time, they're coming across using WhatsApp for language learning. There are audio text activities. For example, how do you spell? So I would regard, how do you spell uh, lieutenant? And the student writes it. He asks a question back. How do you spell? You can identify a lot of difficult spellings, which can be used for puzzling the learners as time moves. The sun hitting one of the sides of my face makes me more illuminated on the left side. I'm a lefty, but then I can't ask sun to keep away. We continue with our session. These are some of the audio exercises. Now this is amazing. Distance interview. So a student prepares an interview, records each question, or maybe it can be done sending all questions at a time or one question at a time. The respondent responds. Now, for a moment, think if this is done really uh, rigorously, you know, imagine the kind of language learning this particular activity would generate. Now, uh, uh, you have audio diary. I was talking about blogging right in my first case study, that the research paper that I was sharing. The audio diary can also become an amazing tool for making students expressive as far as language learning is concerned. I don't know how. a teacher of mathematics would use this, but I'm sure you can innovate. All I want to say is these tools, which are otherwise stigmatized as a waste of time, can bring in some enormous benefits in teaching and learning. Uh, you have, photograph, for example, English in my community. You can take photographs. I mean, there are enormous number of examples where there are problems in spelling. You can ask your learners to move around the city, look at the hoardings. Spellings of stationery, for example, is most of the times a serious error. And then there are many such errors which they can identify. They can take a picture of, I mean, they are on a tour, they take a picture of some, um, uh, very popular place, and then they post it, people write about it. As I said, if, let's go back to the theme of the conference, practices and possibilities. And if you remember, I said I would remain with possibilities because then there's there is infinity. I mean, infinite possibilities are available when we have to use these tools. 30-second presentations. If the learners are mature, this could be 30-minute presentation. 30-minute presentation could mean a lot of bandwidth issues. Say 10 minutes presentation. But then you've still made it expressive for those students. So there are various ways in which WhatsApp can be used for role plays. WhatsApp can be used for forming a group, which becomes an extension to your regular class, online, offline. WhatsApp groups can also act as a parallel pedagogical tool for delivering a lecture, and you can see the difference. How we can use WhatsApp or other social networking tools, particularly WhatsApp allows you to form groups. It's an example of collaborative learning, broadcast announcements and information, share audio and video, share links, chat, problem solving, critical thinking, and interpersonal relations. Audio video calls are possible. So these are a number of ways in which we can interact, we can collaborate on WhatsApp. Now, these are serious challenges, and when I say challenges, they are real challenges. The attitude of all stakeholders. If you think of, integration of social networking tools, and as I gave you the examples of WhatsApp, the parents themselves would say that these teachers have now gone mad. They are asking students to use WhatsApp. They are doing their assignments on WhatsApp. The stakeholders, management may not like it. That, well, social networking, no, people would not like it. So we'll have to deal with the attitude of all stakeholders. Learners initially may feel that the teacher has gone crazy that he's using WhatsApp for teaching and learning. But then, we will have to motivate them. It's our job to show them the right way. And maybe one good example, and they're all there because everyone would see the benefits of learning. Resistance to change. Now, this is a universal phenomenon. You and I, everyone, when we're asked to change, get out of our comfort zone, we don't easily give in. We resist. We need to deal with that resistance. Access to technology. Yes, this is a serious problem, as I said. Infrastructure, bandwidth. At times, students may not have cell phones, which can have a good use of social networking. Access to high-speed internet, data pack. Now, a data pack, for example, many of us, I am taking online sessions, and in staff meetings, we discuss that students' data pack may expire. But here we are talking about WhatsApp. Fine. Data pack in Zoom may expire, but WhatsApp is their day-to-day life. They would anyway be using it for their entertainment. So this is, this is not a separate formal learning a psychological condition. I mean, learners don't have to think of learning in a Zoom. They are on a WhatsApp chat, and a role play group's message pops out, and the gentleman is in a learning mode. And that is the real benefit of social networking tools and its use in day-to-day learning. Uh, Flooding of non-academic information, as I said, it has its problems, but then as teachers, uh, right motivation, uh, right molding can change this bottleneck into an advantage. Breach of privacy at times, you know this could mean, sometimes uh, your numbers become public, teachers numbers become public, and that is something that we are all facing today. Because, for example, even in online teaching, we regularly have WhatsApp groups where we are communicating with our learners, and these numbers go to people who you don't want uh, these numbers to go. Cyberbullying can happen. It could also interfere, and there could be interferences and distractions. But these are the challenges. But when you weigh the good against the bad, I'm sure that the good is way higher than the bad effect, and therefore I think we should do our best to ensure we integrate the social networking tools in our day-to-day learning. I think this was a wonderful time. I'm sure you will have better ideas than I have when we are talking about these social networking tools or networking tools and its integration. Try and innovate, as I said. There are enormous possibilities, and there is enormous potential of social networking tools. Uh, all the best. Stay healthy, stay safe. I once again take this opportunity to thank all of you who would listen to me. This is a pre-recorded lecture, but I know it's painful to listen to anyone, and I wish you a good time when you're listening to me. I congratulate the organizers. I know there are exponential number of people who have participated in this conference. It was a very relevant theme. Both Vedant and Harivandana College deserves the congratulations. Uh, that's it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you,
Stay
sir.
healthy. Stay safe.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your precious time and the meaningful the discussions. I hope the learners would certainly enjoy and will implement these things in their practices in their day-to-day teaching learning sessions. Thank you very
Yeah.
much on the behalf of all the
So
organizing institutions and committees.
true. I mean, this was a real illuminating experience. You can see that one half of me is
You
illuminated
are
enough.
illuminated, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Have a wonderful time.
Thank you, sir.